Welcome to the Sincerely God podcast. I'm Sarah, and I believe that God is speaking to all of us all the time and in many different ways. The primary way that I listen is through two-way journaling. And on this podcast, I share excerpts from my journaling time with God, which are really inspirational messages spoken from the perspective of God to you. I'll talk more about what two-way journaling is and explore other methods which may be helpful for you to listen to God in your own unique way. I'm just an ordinary person who gets to hear from an extraordinary God, and I believe you can too. Thanks for joining. Hi everyone. So before I get started on today's episode, I wanted to share an announcement. So I've mentioned before that I was working on an e-course. So that is finally fully ready. It's published. You can access it. It is called Discovering the Ways That God is Speaking to You. It shares a lot about really using my own journey and what I learned along the way, pulling from a lot of different sources, obviously my own experiences, what God has revealed to me directly, but also other teachers and speakers and books that I've read, and really just kind of walks you through a process to discover the ways that God is already speaking to you. I absolutely believe that God is speaking to all of us all the time and in many different ways. And so if that's something that maybe you don't think that he is speaking to you, or maybe you just aren't sure and you want to dig a little deeper in that and learn some tools or some practices that might help you tune into that way and maybe discover what is a primary way for you. I share a lot on this podcast about the ways that God has been speaking to me, and I like to go into depth onto a couple of different types of those ways, including having guests on, like I had in the last episode, my friend Dre. We talked about how God speaks to us through music and song. So I just encourage you, if it's something that you are thinking about, that maybe you want to go a little deeper, you can go to my website. I also have an updated website. It is now sincerelygod.com. I will have links to everything in the show notes, or you can get all that information on my various social media pages. But check it out. There's a preview. You can look at the full course content, all the different topics that are covered. In the course, I have video teaching as well as homework and sort of just activities that you can do to practice on your own. I also have a resource list that includes books or podcasts or other online resources that you can use to go deeper, things that have helped me, things that I think will help you. So I just recommend you check it out. For the month of June, I will be offering it at a discounted price, so that will be $35. It is about 4.5 hours of video teaching, but there is so much additional content in there. So check it out. Feel free to message me if you have any questions about it. I'm just really excited. I'm hoping that it's going to help some of you who maybe just want to go a little deeper and aren't as confident in those ways that God is already speaking to you, that it'll walk you through that process to really get to a deeper level of connection and understanding and just relationship with God. So I'm so excited about that. Okay, so today I'm going to go back to my normal, just sharing a journaling excerpt that God has spoken to me previously and kind of go through that. But I am going to keep having guests on. I have a lot of friends that have different ways that are their primary way of hearing from God that I want you to be able to hear about as well, because we're all different. And so as you hear stories and just these different examples, I'm hoping that it will help open you up to recognize all of those ways that God is speaking to you. Okay, so the journaling excerpt today, he says, "Be open to receive. Yes, my child, be open and receive my words to you. My child, I long for you to receive my power and goodness and glory and might. I long for you to receive to the fullness of my spirit. You are learning to share and believe. You are learning to ask and receive. This pleases me, and I long to pour out my love in full measure. I long to transform you through and through by my might. But you are not ready. You are still hesitant to receive and experience fully. You still have fear and doubt that gets in the way and clouds your connection to me. Let these go, my child. Let down your guard. Let go your striving. Let go and let me move freely in you. Let my spirit permeate every ounce of your being. Make room for me. Make space to run and be free. Let go of the old. My new is here. It is time to let go and live freely in my new ways. Yes, live freely in me, my child. I am the way. I am the truth that you need. I am the life that is worth living. Let go, my child. Let go of all you care so much about. What is your department that you spent so many years to build? What is your reputation and influence across your workplace? Yes, you did well. You built and created and proved your worth to many. But what is all that compared to me? What is all that compared to living in my glory? Isn't my way better? Aren't my plans more? Then why do you hold on to such things? Why do you stress and strive and fill your time with things that will quickly pass away? Yes, you have basic tasks that must be done, but let go of the rest. Let go of the hold it has on you. Your future is not in that place. No, my plans do not include new tasks and titles amongst the work you now know. It is time to let go. It is time to see my plans for you. It is time to commit fully to my future. You will eventually say goodbye to your work and its people. No, you will not lose all your friendships. No, you will leave with many connections, connections that will last into eternity. This is my will and plan for you, my child, not to stress and strive for things that will soon pass away, but rather to live in light of eternity. Yes, to lead others to a beautiful future. Do not be so concerned over who will take your place when it is time to go. I will take care of this. I will provide so you may go in peace. I am telling you these things because I desire you to fully commit to my work. Yes, my child, let go of what hinders and distracts. Grab hold of my plans and promises. Go all in. Live for me, my child. Do my work. Follow this path I have set before you. Run this race. Win the prize. Yes, my child, I am your prize, and I desire to give you all of me. I desire to fill you with my glorious presence to a degree you have never known. Yes, my child, I will fill you to capacity, to a fullness you have never known. My work in you will be complete. My glory will find its house in you. Yes, my glory will shine forevermore in and through you. Receive, my child. Receive and be filled. It is time to let go of the old. Yes, my child, let go of the old and grab hold of the new. Let my glory work be complete in you. So this excerpt that I shared today is back from July of 2018, and that was pretty soon after God had started telling me that I wouldn't be at my workplace for long, that I would eventually move on. And that was, I've shared before, it was a big thing for me. I had a part of my identity was tied into my work. And, you know, there's so much in here where he's just talking about like, what's your reputation and influence across your workplace? What are all these tasks that you have done? Why do you keep stressing and striving and allowing these to have a hold on you? And it just speaks to where I was at that time of so much of how I saw my own value and who I was as a person. So much of that was tied into my work, what I did. I mean, I was successful in my job. I had people who respected my opinions and the work that I did, and I could see my future in a way. Like it gave me a sense of certainty, right? Like I knew that if I continued to work as I had been working, that I would continue to be successful and I would be able to, you know, have those friendships, those relationships in that workplace and those measurements of my value. And I think so much probably just within Western society, but you know, I can look all the way back to when I was a child, and I think it still occurs today in the way that our school structure is set up, is we demonstrate that we place so much value on these task type accomplishments, right? Get good grades at school, you know, get more responsibility in your workplace. These are things that we value in our society, and I think that's good. But we can, as individuals, what can happen is we begin to tie our own personal value to those external measurements. And I definitely know for myself, since I was a child, right? I was the one who got good grades. That was a clear measurement, right? That I could follow and know, okay, if I get good grades, then I'm going to be identified as successful or have some type of, positive view. Even if you don't think of like a reward, it's hard even when you're in school to think of the ultimate reward of like, hey, I can get a scholarship to college or whatever. But the immediate reward of like, okay, the teacher acknowledges me, appreciates me, my parents, my peers, whatever, there's this, in a way, reward tied to it. And then that continues, right, as we get jobs and we progress in our careers. But everything in this world can be taken away. Everything in this world only has so much of a measurement of value. And so when we wrap up our own personal value into the things of this world, such as a job or a social status, anything like that, it sets us up to not just be disappointed, but to have this identity crisis. I remember even, years before this journaling message, having a moment where I had the potential of shifting the way that I worked, that I could work part-time and try to focus on other things. But I knew that if I shifted to a part-time position, that the role that I had, the influence that I had, the respect, and all of these things that I was getting value in my workplace, I knew that those would be drastically reduced. And I had this, in a way, this identity crisis because I had so much of my identity tied up into all of that. And so all that to say, I went through a season, and I think in a lot of ways there's still aspects of that season and growth and change that are still happening, but I had to go through a certain amount even to be ready to step away from my career, that God had to do this work in me to help unravel my identity from the work that I did, from the tasks that I accomplished, from the role that I had in this workplace environment. And, in that there's a freedom. There's so much that we can carry on our own shoulders, the stress, the striving. I know for myself, I always thought about work, that even if I wasn't actually kind of on the clock, weekends, nights, my mind would often be running through things, planning things, strategizing, problem solving. And there was this kind of constant level of stress. And there was just a weight, a heaviness, a pull, like I was tied to my success at work. And so when things would go wrong, it would impact me overall. So as I've been able to just really allow God to do this transformation and shift my identity so that I realize that my value, my worth, everything is tied to who I am in God. And that can't be taken away. If I lose a job, if I lose my friends, if I lose my social status or my finances or any of these different things that are part of the way that we live and operate in this world, if I lose those, I don't lose myself. And that is huge freedom. And so if you find that you have something in your life, it doesn't have to be job. It can be, sometimes it's family, right? We tie our identity to our spouse, our kids, who we are as a parent. So it could be any number of things. But if it is something that is tied into really the world, then it can always be taken away. And that removes a level of freedom that God desires for us. God has given us full freedom where we can live and walk through this life without being tied to anything, to the degree that we're not okay if it gets taken away. And that's not to say, when you go through something where you lose something, where you lose a job, especially if you lose a person that is close to you, it's still a level of loss and extreme grief and difficulty, and it is going to change you, of course. But there's a way to be able to still have life. There's a way to be able to still go on and know that who you are as an individual, as a person, that you are still you, and that no matter of anything that is taken away from you can't change that. And even, you think about people who go through physical challenges. Maybe they lose the ability to walk, or just anything that's impacting their physical ability to move around in this life, right? That even then, even if you cannot accomplish anything on your own, even if you no longer have the physical ability to do things on your own, you still are of infinite value. And that's the freedom that God wants us to live in, is to know that our identity cannot be changed, cannot be taken away when that identity is tied into Him, because we are of intimate value, of intimate worth. We are always, always enough in God's eyes. He created us to be in connection with Him, in relationship with Him, to simply be. And that doesn't mean that we need to accomplish all of these tasks or become all of these, successful measurements. We are infinitely valued even if we do nothing. And yes, God made us to work and to have relationships and to live and create and just be His image in this world, right? Like that is part of what He intends for us. But the key is, where are we placing our identity? Where are we tying our personal worth? How we see ourselves, where we put our value. And that's the key difference. And so for me, I needed to go through a process of being able to unravel my identity from my work in order to be able to get to a place where I could actually live in the freedom that He intended for me. And that was a process. It's, I think, in some ways still a process. Like, I have a couple years after this particular excerpt, I was going through this process, and God finally made clear to me, like, okay, it is time. And I stepped away from my career, and then I went through a sabbatical season, and that sabbatical season has been longer than I expected it to be. And I've been in even more growth and just transformation that God has been doing to help reform really this identity. I thought that I had done so much to be able to get to a place to step away from my career. That was huge. That did require a lot of that work to be done. But whenever we do stuff with God, it's like there's another layer and another layer. And we think that, okay, I've grown from this thing. I've resolved this. I've healed from this particular aspect, whatever. And then it's like it comes back around again, and there's another layer, a deeper level of healing and growing and becoming really that pure, true version of ourselves. So it's a process. And so I encourage you to look at your own life. And that can be hard sometimes, to realize that we've placed so much of our personal worth in a particular, maybe it's a person, maybe it's a role, maybe it's a status or just a measurement of success. Start to evaluate that. And I encourage you to bring it to God and say, show me where I am finding value and worth in myself that is not true, that is not sustaining, that is not eternal, right? When you can place your value and find your identity in something that is eternal, that cannot be taken away, the level of freedom that you can then live in is dramatic. It doesn't mean you need to walk away from that relationship, that workplace, that job. That was true in my situation, but I think that is not something that is true for everybody. So it's not a matter of, oh, I need to remove all of these things that I'm tying my own identity with. No, it's allowing God to do that transforming process to detangle. And it's not typically this clean cut, right? There's an entanglement that happens over time, I think all the way back to childhood. And so that's part of why it's such a process, is because it's like, okay, let's remove one layer and one layer and one layer. And it's detangling these ties so that you can still have that job, that career, that role as a parent, as a spouse, but it doesn't have a grip on you the way that it used to. So start that process, and don't feel like it needs to be rushed. Allow God to do the work in it. It's about, I think, being open and having an awareness first that this isn't best. And then kind of just step by step, allow God to guide you through that. And that might be just assessing some personal beliefs. Perhaps there are some root beliefs and in some ways root lies that have led you to tie your value to this particular thing. You know, we get told things, we experience things when we're children that become core beliefs, and they may not be true. And so going through that process of like finding what's the thing beneath the thing, and then really taking a critical eye to that and evaluating, is this actually true, or is this something that perhaps I learned at a young age and I can now update based on my experiences since then. So I didn't realize I was going to go quite so far into that aspect, but other things from this journaling word that I love is just, he talks so much about that he is the life that is worth living. He says, I am the way, I am the truth that you need, I am the life that is worth living. And that, I think, ties to, again, this sense of identity. The life that is worth living is the life that is lived in full connection to your creator, to the creator of the universe, to this being that exists beyond and in and through everything. And when you can recognize that who you are as a person, that in a way you are you and you are also God, you are I am. And when you recognize this connection, not to say that you are a God, but that's how close your connection is. That's how close our connection is with God, is as if he is in us and we are in him. And if you can recognize that and live your life that way, that is the life that is worth living. That is the life that is free. The amount of freedom that you can experience when you know that this connection is so deep, is so intimate, is so immovable that you can lose something in your life and still know your worth. You can go through a difficult circumstance and still know that you are worthy and that your life is worth living. He also says, let go of what hinders and distracts, grab hold of my plans and promises, go all in, live for me. Follow this path I've set before you, run this race, win the prize. Yes, my child, I am your prize, and I desire to give you all of me. I desire to fill you with my glorious presence to a degree you have never known. Back to this idea of just our value, our identity is in God. And these external measurements, these external prizes, rewards that we get from, the job that we do, the career that we have, the amount of money in our bank account, whatever that may be, all of that can be taken away. But the ultimate prize, the reward, the thing that can never be taken away is our relationship with God, because that's internal. And so it doesn't matter what happens in the world around you, in your life. We can go through the most horrendous circumstances and yet still have this prize in us. And I know that in some ways that's easy for me to say when I haven't been through perhaps what you've been through. But even from a quality of life of, okay, I have a home, I have friendships, I have a family, I have a career, all the things that are important in this life that we put a worth and a value in this world. All of that, but without this connection, without this day-to-day, moment by moment, knowing that I am always connected to God and I can be filled with his presence, and that may be through peace, through joy, through just strength sometimes, right, to carry through that. if I have all of that, but I don't have this connection with my Creator, then I'm carrying the weight, like all of those good things become weight and heaviness and pull on me, and I can't honestly fully enjoy them or give my best to them because they've become a weight and they've become a burden and they've now become the opposite of a reward, right? But if I have all of those things and I have this recognition that my ultimate prize is Jesus, that my ultimate worth is found in God and my identity in God, then I can be, let's say, the spouse, the parent, the boss, the whatever, the friend. I can be all of those things, yet not have them be pulling on me as a heavy weight, not having them weigh on me and be this burden on my shoulders that if I don't do all the things, if I don't be all the things, if I don't keep everyone happy, then it's all going to fall apart, and then I'm not going to have my own worth, and I'm going to feel worthless and broken and all of the things. But when I know that my identity is with God and that ultimately my prize is this connection with Him, then I can enjoy all these things and I can give my best self to them because they're not weighing on me, they're not pulling on me, they're just not this scrambled entanglement that's straining on me, right? This stressing and striving and pushing and pulling. I can walk freely through this life and give my best and be free to know that if something does get taken away, if I do lose something, if there is a big shift in my life, that I'm still okay, that I'm still worthy, that I still have my prize of my connection and my relationship with God. So just something I think I'm still learning and growing in. I can see the dramatic shift, and there's been, again, these layers, right? It's a process. Like I had a layer of it when I went through my divorce, and I had this level of having to recognize that my identity wasn't in this picture perfect, okay, I'm going to be married, have kids, and white picket fence. That there was a grieving process, but on the other side of that was a burden removed, because I could live freely and know that even if I'm divorced, I'm still valuable. Even if I don't have children, I'm still valuable. Even if I don't look exactly the way this world says I need to look to be successful, I am still successful. I am still good and positive. Then there was the layer of leaving my work, my career, and all of the ways that I got affirmation and measurements of success that way. And that's been a process. And I think even now there's new layers of it, of as I'm really just waiting on the Lord to give me that guidance of what is next. And I feel like He's telling me to stop worrying about it, to stop trying to figure it out, because ultimately He wants me to live every single day in full freedom, trusting in Him, connected to Him, walking hand in hand, perhaps not knowing what today holds, what tomorrow holds, but being able to walk in confidence, even if I don't know what is around the bend. And that's another layer. And it's a deeper level of freedom and experiencing, I think, this purity of my identity being found in Him, and not needing to kind of have a clear plan, a clear path, right? Trusting that He has a path and that's all that I need. So I just encourage you, maybe you've been through some layers already. Don't be surprised if there's more layers to go. I think we're always going to be learning and growing and just becoming more of this ultimate version of ourselves that was His pure intent, that was how we were originally created to be and to live. So I encourage you, if you want to learn more, grow deeper, discover some of the ways that God is speaking to you, check out my e-course. You can go to sincerelygod.com, or just take some time with God to maybe evaluate your own life and to see, are there some areas where your identity is too tied up in something that is of the world that could be taken away, and maybe you want to start that process of unraveling to live in more freedom. So I encourage you in that, and I just thank you for continuing to hang with me, supporting me, and checking out my e-course. Thanks for tuning in to the Sincerely God podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe and share with your friends. If you'd like more information, you can go to my website, sincerelygod.com. There you'll find links to my social media, as well as an ability to get your own copy of Sincerely God, a collection of quotes, either the book or the prayer journal. Until next time, keep listening to how God is speaking to you.